Wine, the clay pitcher exploded against the boardroom wall. Water sprayed across the mahogany table, across 12 stunned executives, across the face of a woman in a wheelchair who had not been able to feel her own hands in 14 months. And standing in the doorway, still gripping the handle of his mop bucket, was the night janitor, a single father named Daniel Brooks, who had just thrown away the only job feeding his little girl. "Sir," security said, "hands where I can see them." 48 hours later, that same CEO would be crying in a hospital bed, asking him one question. "How did you notice what every doctor missed? Comment the city you're watching from." I want to see how far this story travels, and subscribe, because the truth in Part 5 will break your heart. 14 months earlier, Daniel Brooks was mopping a hallway at 11:40 at night and doing math in his head. Not company math, not the kind they did upstairs with the projectors and the pie charts. His math was simpler and meaner. Rent was $11.40. Electric was $190 because the window unit ran all summer, and Maddie couldn't sleep without it. Her inhaler was $62 with the discount card and $190 without it. And last month, the pharmacy lady had looked at him with that face, the sorry face, and said, the card didn't cover the new one. He pushed the mop. He did the math again. It came out the same both times. Brooks. Ray Delgado came around the corner with his cart 70 years old and still working nights because his wife's dialysis didn't care how old he was. Ray. You eat. I'm good. That ain't what I asked, hee-ho. Daniel leaned on the mop handle. I had a sandwich. When? Recently. When Daniel. Ray. I swear to God. Ray reached into his cart and came out with half a Cuban sandwich wrapped in foil, and he set it on Daniel's cart, the way a man sets down a thing that isn't up for discussion. My wife makes too much, Ray said. It's an insult if you don't take it. Your wife's been in a chair since March. She supervises. Ray started pushing off. 22nd floor's yours tonight. Carter's office. Daniel stopped. 22. That's Nadia's floor. Nadia quit. Nadia's been here 9 years. Nadia's been here 9 years, and now she's been here 0 years because Ms. Perkins wrote her up for moving a paperweight 2 inches. Ray shrugged, and it was the shrug of a man who had watched 100 people come and go through a door he'd been holding open his whole life. You want the floor or not? It's 4 extra hours a week. 4 hours a week was $68. $68 was the inhaler and change. I want the floor, Daniel said. The 22nd floor was quiet in a way the other floors weren't. Down on 11 you could still hear the copiers cooling and the vending machine humming and somebody's radio left on. 22 was just carpet and glass and the sound of your own breathing. There was a woman still in there. Daniel saw her through the wall of glass at the end of the hall, a shape at a desk lit blue by a monitor at 11:50 at night. He knocked on the doorframe with 2 knuckles. Ma'am, housekeeping. I can come back? Come in. I don't want to interrupt. You're not interrupting. You're the only interesting thing that's happened in 6 hours. He came in. Emily Carter was 32 years old, and she ran the whole thing, 9,000 employees, 41 distribution hubs, a fleet of trucks that moved 4% of everything that crossed the state line. Daniel knew that because it was on a plaque by the elevator. What the plaque didn't say was that she ran it from a wheelchair, and that at 11:50 at night, her face was the gray of old newspaper. You're new? She said. Daniel, I'm covering for Nadia. Nadia quit. That's what they tell me. Because of the paperweight. Emily's mouth did something that wasn't a smile. I found out this afternoon. I've been sitting here for an hour trying to figure out how to get her back without making Ms. Perkins look like a fool, because if I make Ms. Perkins look like a fool, she'll take it out on the next Nadia. Daniel didn't say anything to that. He'd learned a long time ago that when rich people talked out loud, they weren't always talking to you. "You can clean," she said. "I'm not fragile." "Yes, ma'am." He worked. She typed. And Daniel, without meaning to, started noticing. That was the problem with him. That had always been the problem with him. Then he noticed that she typed with the heels of her hands, not her fingertips. He noticed that when she reached for the water pitcher on the corner of her desk, she reached with her whole arm from the shoulder, like the arm was a tool she was operating from far away. He noticed that she poured and missed the rim, and water ran across the desk, and she said nothing at all about it, just went and got a napkin from a drawer that already had 100 napkins in it because this happened every day, and she'd stopped being surprised. He noticed the pitcher. It was clay, handmade, the ugly, beautiful kind gray-green with a glaze that ran uneven down the sides, and it did not belong on that desk with the glass and the steel and the awards. "Ma'am." "Emily." "Ma'am, I'll get that." "I've got it." "I know you've got it. It's my job to have it." He was already there with the towel. "You pay me to have it. Let me have it." She looked up at him then, and for 1 second something went across her face that he'd seen before on his mother at the end when the hospice nurse had tried to help her with the spoon. "Thank you," she said. "Yes, ma'am." He wiped the desk. The water had a smell to it. Faint. Metallic. Like the taste when you bite your cheek. He didn't say anything. He'd promised himself a long time ago that he wasn't going to be that guy anymore. Home was 31 minutes on the 40 bus and a 9-minute walk, and Maddie was 7, which meant Mrs. Okafor from 2B slept on his couch 4 nights a week for $40 and a ride to church on Sundays. He came in at 6:20 in the morning, and his daughter was already at the kitchen table with her shoes on the wrong feet. "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." "Baby, I'm right here, you don't have to." "We're doing habitats." "Habitats." "I got desert." "Desert's a good one." "Tyler got rainforest." She said it the way you'd say a war crime. "Tyler always gets rainforest." "Wrong feet, Mads." She looked down. She sighed like a 40-year-old woman. She switched them. He made eggs. He made eggs the way he made them every morning, and he sat across from her and watched her eat, and he did not eat because there were 4 eggs left and 2 days until Friday. "Daddy, are you tired?" "Nope." "Your eyes are doing the thing." "What thing?" "The tired thing." She pointed at her own eyes with her fork. "The red." "That's just from the cleaning stuff." "Okay." She chewed. "Miss Ramos said you're supposed to come to the thing." "What thing?" "The parent thing. On Thursday. At night." Daniel put his hands flat on the table. "Baby, Thursday night I work." "I know." She said it fast, too fast, the way she'd learned to say it so he wouldn't feel bad. "I know, I told her. It's fine. Tyler's mom's coming. She can watch me and Tyler both." "Mads." "It's fine, Daddy." She stabbed an egg. "I don't even like the parent thing." He watched her eat. He thought about the $11.40 and the $1.90 and the $62. "I'll ask," he said. "You don't have to." "I'll ask." Odd. He asked Ms. Perkins on Wednesday, and Ms. Perkins was 44 and wore a lanyard like a sheriff's badge and had a laminated card taped to her office wall that said, "The answer is no until it isn't." "Thursday," she said. "Just Thursday, one night. I'll make it up Saturday. I'll take Ray's floors." "Contract's the contract, Brooks." "It's an hour and a half. I'd be back by 9. "And who does 22 till 9? "Nobody's on 22 at 7. I'd do it after." Ms. Perkins looked at him over her glasses. "You know what my job is, Brooks." "Ma'am." "My job is, that when the sun comes up, the floors are clean, and nobody upstairs ever has to think about me. That's it. That's the whole job. The second somebody upstairs thinks about me, I've failed." She clicked her pen. "You know how many people ask me for Thursday?" "I don't know. All of them. Every single one. Everybody's got a kid. Everybody's got a thing. Everybody's got a situation." She said situation like it was a word she'd had to hear too many times. "So the answer's no. Because if it's yes for you, it's yes for all of them. And then the sun comes up and the floors are dirty and somebody upstairs thinks about me." Daniel stood there. "Ma'am, with respect, there's 12 of us on nights. If you said yes 12 times a year..." "Brooks, I'm just asking you to do the math." "Brooks." She set down the pen. "You used to have a real job, didn't you?" He didn't answer. "It's in your file." "Answer." "It's in your file. Environmental compliance. Hazmat investigations. Some kind of certification." She tapped the folder. 12 years. 14. "So what happened?" "Company folded." "That's it." Daniel looked at the laminated card on the wall. "That's it," he said. That night, he went up to 22, and Emily Carter was there again, and she was not typing. She was sitting perfectly still with both hands flat on the desk, and her breathing was wrong, and Daniel stopped in the doorway with his cart. "Ma'am? Don't." "Ma'am, should I call somebody?" "Don't call anybody." It came out through her teeth. "Please, please don't." He stood there. He counted. He got to 9 before her shoulders came down half an inch. "It passes," she said. "It always passes. 90 seconds. Sometimes 2 minutes. That's not nothing. It's not new either." She flexed her fingers, or tried to. "Do you know what my neurologist told me? He said, and I want you to appreciate this. He said, 'Ms. Carter, at some point we stop investigating and we start adapting.' He said that to you. He said it kindly. That's the part that kills me. He was kind about it." Daniel put his hands on the cart. He should push it. He should push it into the room and empty the trash and wipe the glass and go home. "How long?" he said. 22 months. She said it without looking up. 22 months, 9 specialists, 4 hospitals, 1 experimental trial in Boston that made my hair fall out for nothing. They've got a name for it now. It's a long name. It means we don't know in Latin. "Ma'am." "Emily, God please. Everybody in this building calls me ma'am, and half of them are older than my father." "Emily." "Yeah." Daniel looked at the picture. It sat there on the corner of the desk, gray-green, sweating in the light with a ring of pale crust dried around the inside of the lip that he had wiped off twice already this week, and that had come back both times. "Don't," he thought. "Don't do this. Not again. Not for one more person in your whole life." "Nothing," he said. "Good night, Emily." Here is what happened 14 years ago, and Daniel Brooks had never told it to anybody at the company because it wasn't in the file. Only the ending was in the file. He'd been 31 and good at his job. He'd walked into a plant in Ohio on a routine inspection, and he'd noticed a thing, a small thing. The wrong color on a valve gasket, a smell in the drainage line that didn't match the manifest. He'd written it up, he'd flagged it, and the plant manager had laughed and said, "Brooks, you know how much it costs to shut this line down?" And Daniel had said, "I don't care what it costs," and the plant manager had said, "You will." And they shut the line down. 9 days. 400 people didn't work for 9 days, and 40 of them didn't come back after, and Daniel got to sit in a conference room in front of a lawyer and hear the phrase statistically insignificant contamination 11 times. The report came back. He'd been right. He'd been right. Technically, legally, factually right. The exposure was real, the numbers were real, and 2 of those men would have gotten sick in 10 years maybe. 2 men, 9 days. 400 people. They didn't fire him. That was the thing. They didn't fire him. His supervisor shook his hand and said, "Good catch." And then 6 months later, when the company reorganized, Daniel's name was on a list, and everybody was very professional about it, and nobody ever said the word pitcher or gasket or maybe you should have let it go. And he'd gone home to a wife who was already halfway out the door. And she'd looked at him across the kitchen and said the truest thing anybody ever said to him. You always have to be the one who notices Danny. You ever think about what that costs the rest of us? She left in the spring. Maddie was 2. Yes. So he'd made a promise. Standing in that kitchen with a 2-year-old on his hip and a box of his own certifications by the door, he'd promised never again. Not one more time. Not one more valve, not one more gasket, not one more thing that isn't your business. You put your head down, and you push the mop, and you keep your daughter fed, and you let people alone. 14 years, he'd kept that promise. Habitats, Maddie announced Thursday morning. Still, it's a project, Daddy, it's not a day. My mistake. I need a shoebox. We got a shoebox. I need sand. We got Mads. Where am I going to get sand? The park has sand. The park has cigarettes in the sand. So we sift it. She looked at him. Right, you sift it, like when you sifted the flour. Daniel started laughing. He couldn't help it. He hadn't laughed in 11 days, and it came up out of him like something breaking loose. Yeah, he said. Yeah, baby, we'll sift it. She grinned at him with her whole face, and for about 4 seconds he was not tired. He was not broke. He was not 36 years old with a mop and a bus pass. He was somebody's dad, and it was Thursday. Then she said, "Are you coming tonight?" And the 4 seconds ended. Baby, you said you'd ask. I asked. And Daniel got up and put his plate in the sink so he wouldn't have to look at her. Miss Ramos said we have to bring somebody, Maddie said behind him. She said it's a bring somebody night. She didn't say you have to. She said bring somebody. Those were the words. Mrs. Okafor could. Mrs. Okafor isn't my dad. The water was running. Daniel let it run. Mads. It's fine. Her chair scraped. I said it's fine like 4 times. Madison. I'm gonna be late. He rode the 40 bus that night with his hands on his knees and his jaw so tight it ached. He got to 22 at 8:15. Emily Carter was there. She was on the phone. She was on the phone and her voice was the voice she used for the plaque by the elevator. Steady, bright, absolutely nothing wrong. No, Marcus, I hear you, but if we take the Norfolk lane, we're eating the fuel spread for 11 weeks, and I'm not eating it in Q3 because Q3 is when the board looks Marcus. That's why no. Tell them I said no. She hung up. Then she tried to lift the pitcher and her hand opened. It just opened. Like a switch got thrown. The pitcher went sideways. Water went across the desk and over the edge and onto the carpet, and Emily Carter sat there in her chair and looked at her own hand like it belonged to a stranger who'd wronged her. Ma'am. Don't. He was already moving. Don't. Her voice cracked all the way down the middle. Don't you dare be nice to me right now, I swear to God. Daniel stopped where he was. Okay, he said. I had a call and it was fine and I was fine. Okay. Do you know what happens if they find out? She wasn't looking at him. She was looking at her hand. Do you know what happens the day the board finds out I can't hold a cup? They don't fire me. That's not how it works. They just start scheduling things I can't get to. They start CCing somebody else. And in a year, there's a nice article about how I stepped back to focus on my health. Emily. Yo. And everybody says how brave I was, and some other guy runs my company, and I go home and I sit in a house I can't get around in, and I wait. The room was very quiet. 22 months, she said. I built this from 4 trucks and a garage. 4 trucks. My dad drove one of them, and I'm gonna lose it because my hands won't close." Daniel stood there with a towel in his fist. And he thought, "Walk out." He thought you promised. He thought about Ohio and the gasket and the 400 men and his wife in the kitchen, and you always have to be the one who notices Danny. And then he looked at Emily Carter's hands on the desk, and he saw the fingernails. 4 white lines, straight across, parallel, on every single nail. Mace's lines. Chummy. He hadn't seen them in 14 years. He'd seen them once in a training slide in a room in Cincinnati from an instructor with a laser pointer who'd said, "Gentlemen, if you ever see this, somebody is being poisoned, and they have been being poisoned for a long time." Daniel's whole body went cold. "Emily," he said, "where'd you get the picture?" She looked up. "What?" "The picture." His voice came out strange. "Where'd it come from?" It was a gift." She blinked at him. "Why? Who from?" "Daniel, what? Who from?" And Emily Carter looked at him, and something in his face made her answer. "From my doctor," she said. 22 months ago, he said the mineral content was good for—" She stopped. She stopped, and Daniel watched the exact moment it landed on her, and it landed the way a truck lands, and she went white. 22 months, she said. "Yeah," Daniel said. "Daniel." Her voice had nothing in it at all. "Daniel, 22 months. I know. He gave it to me before I got sick." Daniel Brooks looked at the clay pitcher on the corner of the desk. 14 years of keeping his head down came off him like a coat hitting the floor. "Has anyone tested it?" he said. Emily Carter did not answer for 11 seconds, and Daniel counted them. He counted them the way he'd counted her breathing the night before, because counting was the only thing he had left that still worked when everything else in him had gone to static. "No," she said finally. "Nobody's tested it." "Okay." "Nobody's ever mentioned it. Not once. In 22 months, not one person has ever looked at that thing and said a single word about it." "Okay. Daniel." Her voice was very careful now, the way people get careful right before they fall apart. "Daniel, you need to tell me what you think you're looking at, and you need to do it right now, and you need to not be gentle about it." He set the towel down on the cart. "I don't know," he said. "That's not an answer. It's the only honest one I've got. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lab. I'm a guy with a mop." He made himself say the next part slow. "But I've seen those lines on your fingernails before, and the only time I ever saw them, I was sitting in a training room in Cincinnati, and the man with the laser pointer told us that if we ever saw them on a live human being, we should stop what we were doing and start asking what that person had been eating and drinking for the last 2 years. Emily looked down at her own hands. "They're just lines," she said. "Maybe." "My dermatologist said it was stress. She said she used a word, she said it was a nail matrix disruption. It happens, it's cosmetic." "Maybe she's right." "Stop saying maybe." "I have to say maybe." It came out louder than he meant it, and it startled them both. He put his hand on the cart to steady himself. "I have to say maybe because I'm a janitor, and if I stand here and tell a Fortune whatever CEO that her doctor's been poisoning her, and I'm wrong, then I'm not just wrong. I'm a lunatic. I'm the crazy guy on 22, and I got a 7-year-old at home who needs me to have a job on Friday." The room went quiet. "Then why'd you say anything at all?" Emily asked. Daniel didn't have an answer for that. It was 8:41 at night, and neither of them moved for a long moment. "I don't know," he said. "I made a promise a long time ago that I wouldn't, and I've kept it. 14 years I kept it, and then you dropped the cup." Emily's jaw tightened. "I don't want your pity." "That's good, because it's not pity. Pity's when you feel bad for somebody. This is the other thing." He looked at the picture. "This is when something doesn't fit, and it gets in your teeth and you can't put it down." She followed his eyes to the pitcher and then away from it fast, like it was a dog that had shown her its teeth. "It's clay," she said. "Yes, ma'am. It's a pitcher. It's the dumbest object in this entire building. There's a $9 million routing algorithm running on the floor below us, and you want me to be afraid of a pitcher. I want you to test it." "That's the same thing." "No, it isn't." He crouched down so his eyes were level with hers, which he had never done with any executive in his life, and he'd have been fired for it on any other night. Being afraid of something is a feeling. A test is a fact. You've had 22 months of feelings, Emily. 9 specialists' worth of feelings. Somebody told you to adapt. That word went into her like a needle. He watched it go. "Get out," she said. "Emily, get out of my office." He stood up. He put his hands on the cart. "Yes, ma'am," he said, and he pushed the cart to the door, and he was almost through it, and behind him she said, "How?" He stopped. "How would I test it?" Emily said. "Hypothetically, because I'm not doing it, but how?" Daniel turned around. "You take it to a lab," he said. "Not a hospital. A hospital tests you. You need somebody who tests things. Environmental Lab Materials Lab, anybody with an ICP-MS and a license. They'll run a leach test. You fill it with a weak acid solution, you let it sit 24 hours, you run the water." "How much does that cost?" $300-400. Emily Carter laughed. It was an ugly, cracked, terrible sound. $400, she said. "Do you know what I've spent? Do you have any idea what number I'm at? Because I do. I know it to the dollar. $241,600 out of pocket after insurance in 22 months. Boston alone was 90. And you're telling me the answer might cost $400, and nobody thought of it. I'm telling you maybe. Don't." She wiped her face with the heel of her hand roughly angrily because her fingers wouldn't do it. "Don't you dare start being careful with me now. You already said the thing. You don't get to take it back and hand me a maybe." Daniel stood in the doorway with his cart. "No," he said. "I guess I don't." At 9:02, she asked him a question that changed everything. "What's his name?" Daniel said. "Whose?" "The doctor, the one who gave it to you." Emily hesitated. He saw it. He saw the hesitation, and he filed it away, and it sat in his stomach like a swallowed stone. "Dr. Aaron Vance," she said. "He's integrative medicine. He's Daniel. He's not some guy in a strip mall. He's got 2 board certifications, and he consults for the hospital system. He's been on television." "I didn't say anything." "You made a face." "I didn't make a face." "You made an entire face." "Okay," Daniel said. "How'd you find him?" "He found me." She stopped. She heard it. Daniel watched her hear it. That's not sinister. That's how it works at this level. There's a whole industry of people who find people like me. He came to a conference. He gave a talk on chronic inflammation and high-stress executives. Half the room hired him. And the pitcher, it was a gift. Her voice was getting thinner. "It was a gift, Daniel. He gave it to me at the end of the first consultation. He said the clay was from a particular region. He said it had a mineral profile. He said the water picks up trace elements, and it's better than filtration because filtration strips everything out. He told you to use it every day. He told me to use it exclusively." Daniel closed his eyes. "Say something," Emily said. "I'm not going to say it." "Say it." "I'm not going to say it because if I say it and I'm wrong, you'll never look at that man the same way again, and he might be the guy who saves your life. So I'm not saying it." Daniel opened his eyes. "I'm saying, test it." At 9:16, Emily Carter picked up her phone. She did it wrong. She had to do it with both hands, and it took her 4 tries, and Daniel stood there and did not help her, because she had not asked, and because he understood something about her, now that had taken him 14 years to learn about himself, which was that some people would rather bleed than be handed a bandage. "Marcus," she said, "it's me. No, it's not about Norfolk. I need a favor, and I need you to not ask me why." Daniel could hear the voice on the other end, tinny and tired. "I need a materials lab," Emily said. "Independent. Not one we've used. Not one on any of our vendor lists." Pause. "Because I said not one on our vendor lists, Marcus." Pause. "Tomorrow." Pause. "No tomorrow, as in when the sun comes up." Pause. "Marcus, I've asked you for one thing in 11 years. This is the thing." She hung up. She set the phone down, and her hands were shaking, and this time it wasn't the disease. "There," she said. "Are you happy?" "No, ma'am." "Why not?" "Because if I'm right, you've been drinking it for 22 months, Daniel said, and happy isn't the word for that. At 9:40, he finally emptied the trash, and that's when he found the second thing. He wasn't looking. He wants that on the record for the rest of his life. In every version of this story he ever tells, he was not looking. He was doing his job. He pulled the liner out of the can under her desk, and it was heavier than it should have been, and he glanced down the way you do, and there were tissues in it. 12 tissues, and every single one had a stain on it. Not red, not blood. A dull, rusty brownish smear like old iron. Daniel stood there holding a garbage bag with both hands and felt the floor tilt. "Emily." "What?" "How long have your gums been bleeding?" She went absolutely still. "How do you know about my gums?" "How long?" "That's not Daniel, that's a dental thing, that's from the medication my dentist said." "How long, Emily?" 14 months. She shouted it. Her voice cracked on it, and it echoed off all that glass. 14 months okay since the spring. It's the medication. It's a known side effect. It's on the pamphlet they printed on the pamphlet. What medication? Does it matter? What medication? The one he prescribed, Emily said, and then her mouth stayed open, and nothing else came out of it. Nobody said anything for a while. Daniel tied the garbage bag closed. He tied it very carefully, and then he did something he could never explain afterward and never regretted. He set it on the cart instead of the chute, and he wrote the date on it with the marker from his shirt pocket. "What are you doing?" Emily said. "I don't know." "Daniel, what are you doing?" "I'm keeping it," he said. "That's garbage." "Yeah," he said. "It's also 14 months of something, and in about a week somebody's going to ask when it started, and everybody in this story is going to have a different answer, and I'd rather have the trash than the opinions." Emily Carter stared at him. "Who are you?" she said. At 6:20 the next morning, he got off the 40 bus and walked the 9 minutes, and Maddie was at the kitchen table with her shoes on the right feet, which she made a point of showing him. "See?" "I see. I checked twice." "That's professional-grade shoe work, Mads." She looked at him hard. "You're doing the eye thing again." "I know." "Worse than usual." "I know, baby." She went back to her cereal, and then, not looking up, in the flat, casual voice that 7-year-olds use to detonate things. "Tyler's mom said you didn't come because you don't want to." Daniel put the pan down. "What?" "At the parent thing. She was talking to Miss Ramos." Maddie shrugged one shoulder. "She said some parents just don't come." "She said that to you?" "She said it near me." Daniel sat down. He sat down slowly in the chair across from his daughter, and he looked at the top of her head while she ate her cereal and pretended it was nothing. "Madison, look at me." "I'm eating." "Look at me, baby." "Yeah, well." She looked up, and her eyes were red, and she'd clearly been holding it since Thursday, and Daniel felt something in his chest tear straight down the middle. "I wanted to come," he said. I wanted to come more than I've ever wanted anything. And I asked, and they said no. And I couldn't make them say yes. That's the truth. That's the whole truth, and I'm not going to dress it up for you. Okay. That's not okay. Don't say okay. But it's fine. It's not fine, Daniel said. It is not fine, and I'm not going to sit here and let you make it fine so I feel better. It's not fine, and I'm sorry, and you're allowed to be mad at me about it. Maddie's chin went. Just went. I'm not mad at you, she said, and then she was crying, and then she was around the table and in his lap, and Daniel Brooks held his daughter at 6:40 in the morning after 14 hours awake and thought about a clay pitcher on the 22nd floor. I am a little mad at you, she said into his shirt. Good. But like a 4 out of 10. I'll take a 4. At 8:15 on Friday morning, Daniel's phone rang. It was a number he didn't know. Mr. Brooks. Yeah. This is Marcus Hale. I'm the COO at Carter Logistics. Daniel sat up so fast, the room swam. Yes, sir. I'm going to ask you a question, and I'd like you to think very hard about the answer. Marcus Hale had a voice like a door closing. Did you tell Emily Carter that her doctor is poisoning her? No, sir. Are you sure? Yes, sir. I told her to test a pitcher. Why? Because there's white lines across her fingernails. There was a long pause on the line. Say that again, Marcus said. There's 4 white lines across every nail on both her hands. They're horizontal. They're parallel. They're evenly spaced. Daniel closed his eyes. In hazmat, we called them Mies lines. They're not a symptom of anything ordinary. They're a calendar. Every line is an exposure event. 4 lines means it happened 4 separate times. Silence. You were in hazmat, Marcus said. 14 years. And now you're... Now I'm a janitor, Daniel said. Yeah? Another pause. Longer. Mr. Brooks. I've known Emily Carter since she had 4 trucks and a garage. I drove one of them. And I watched her walk into a room and out-argue men who'd been in the business since before she was born. Marcus's voice did something on the last part. And I've spent 22 months watching her get smaller, and I have not been able to do one single thing about it, so I need to know if you're a crank. I might be. That's not the answer I wanted. It's the one I've got, sir. I might be a crank. Test it anyway. If I'm a crank, it costs you $400, and you fire me, and everybody moves on. Marcus Hale exhaled. The lab's picking it up at 11, he said. Emily wants you there. Sir, I work nights. Mr. Brooks. A pause. You're not going to want to miss this. At 10:50, Daniel Brooks walked into the lobby of a building he had only ever entered through the loading dock wearing his one good shirt, and the woman at the desk didn't recognize him, and he had to say his name twice. At 11:04, they were all in Emily's office. Emily. Marcus Hale, a lab tech named Priya with a padded case, and Daniel standing by the wall like the furniture. So I just take it, Priya said. Yes, Emily said. And you want a full leach panel. I want everything. Ma'am, everything is a lot of money. I want everything. Priya reached for the pitcher, and Emily Carter said, wait. Everybody stopped. Emily looked at the pitcher for a long moment. Then she said quietly to nobody, I liked it. Ma'am, I liked it. Her voice was strange. That's what I keep. That's the part I can't get past. I liked it. Every morning for 22 months I filled it up and I thought this is the one thing in this whole building that somebody made with their hands. I told people about it. I told the board about it. She laughed and it went wrong halfway through. I gave one to my sister. The room dropped 10 degrees. You what? Daniel said. For Christmas. He gave me a second one. He said... Emily stopped. Emily. Daniel came off the wall. Emily is your sister sick. She has migraines, Emily said. She's had migraines since February. Nobody said anything. Take it, Emily said to Priya. Take it now. Priya took it. At 11:20 after Priya left, Marcus Hale turned to Daniel and said, How long for results? Rush 2 days, standard 10. It's rush, Emily said. Ma'am, I need to say something. Daniel had his hands in his pockets and he made himself take them out. If it comes back clean, that's not the end. That's just the end of one thing. If it comes back clean, you still have 4 lines on your fingernails, and they still came from somewhere. You think it's him, Marcus said, not a question. I don't think anything. Brooks. Sir, I got fired once for thinking, Daniel said. Not officially. Officially, I got restructured, but I got fired for thinking, and it took me 14 years to find a job that lets me sleep at night, and I'd like to keep it. So no, I don't think anything. I think you should test the pitcher. Marcus Hale looked at him for a long moment. Emily, he said. I'd like a word with Mr. Brooks, alone. Tear. At 11:31 in a hallway on the 22nd floor, Marcus Hale said the thing that made Daniel's hands go cold. Vance called me this morning. Daniel didn't move. 6:15 a.m., Marcus said. Before the lab was booked. Before I'd booked the lab. He called and he asked very casually whether Emily had been acting differently lately. Whether she'd been making impulsive decisions. Whether the board had noticed. He used the phrase cognitive fluctuation. Marcus's face had gone gray. He asked me whether, in my professional opinion, she was still fit to run the company. Daniel put his hand on the wall. How'd he know? He said. That's what I've been asking myself for 5 hours. No, sir, listen to me. Daniel's voice was shaking now, and he didn't care. Nobody knew. It was me and her in a room at 9 o'clock at night. Nobody knew. So how did he know by 6:15 in the morning that something had changed? Marcus? Hale stared at him. Who else was in the building? Daniel said. At 11:52, Emily Carter said the sentence out loud for the first time. He's not trying to kill me. Marcus said, Emily, listen to me. Listen. She was leaning forward in her chair, and her eyes were burning. He's not trying to kill me. If he wanted me dead, I'd be dead. It's been 22 months. He wants me impaired. He wants me sick enough that I can't run this company and healthy enough to keep paying him. That's a hell of an accusation, Marcus said. Then tell me I'm wrong. Emily, tell me I'm wrong, Marcus. She hit the desk with the flat of her hand, the only way she could hit anything anymore. Tell me why a man who's known me for 22 months called my COO at 6 in the morning to ask if I was fit. Tell me why the only thing that man has ever given me for free was the one thing nobody ever tested. Marcus Hale did not tell her she was wrong. Who benefits? Daniel said quietly. They both looked at him. That's the only question, he said. In hazmat, that's the only question that ever matters. Not who did it, who benefits. He looked at Emily. If you step back tomorrow, if there's a nice article about how you're focusing on your health, who gets your chair? Emily Carter's face changed. It changed slowly, and it was the worst thing Daniel had ever watched happen to a human face. Oh, she said. Emily. Oh, God. Emily who? She didn't answer for a long time. When she did, her voice had gone somewhere very far away. My sister's husband, Emily said. He's on the board. He's been on the board since my father died. She looked up. He's the one who introduced me to Vance. The room was so quiet, Daniel could hear the air conditioning. He introduced you, Marcus said slowly. At the conference. He said, you have to meet this guy. He changed my life. Emily's hands had started to shake. And I gave a picture to my sister. For Christmas. I gave his wife a picture, and now she has migraines, and I gave it to her. Emily. I gave it to her, Marcus. I put it in her hands. At 12:04, Emily Carter's phone rang. She looked at the screen. She went white. It's him, she said. Nobody moved. Don't answer it, Marcus said. He'll know something's wrong if I don't answer. Emily, don't. She answered it. She put it on speaker with the heel of her hand and set it on the desk, and Daniel Brooks stood 8 feet away and stopped breathing. Emily, warm, bright, a voice like a hand on your shoulder. How's my favorite patient? Hi, Aaron. You sound tired. Long week. A pause. A very small pause. Emily, I got a strange call this morning, from a lab. Marcus Hale's head came up. Did you? Emily said. They wanted to verify a chain of custody, something about a ceramic sample. The voice was still warm. It was still perfectly, absolutely warm. Emily, is there something you want to tell me? Emily Carter looked across the room at a janitor she'd met 3 nights ago. And Daniel Brooks looked back at her and shook his head one time very slowly. No, Emily said. Nothing. Because you can tell me anything, you know that. I know. Emily. The warmth thinned, just slightly, just enough. Who's in the room with you? And Emily. Carter said, nobody. The line was quiet for 3 seconds. 3 seconds is nothing. 3 seconds is the time it takes to find your keys. But Daniel Brooks stood 8 feet from that phone and felt every one of them go through him like a nail. Nobody, Dr. Aaron Vance repeated. That's what I said. Emily, I can hear the room. You can hear the room. I can hear the acoustics. You're on speaker in a big space with hard surfaces. A small laugh. Warm, friendly. I've been listening to you on the phone for 2 years. I know what your office sounds like when it's empty. Marcus Hale put one finger to his lips. Marcus is here, Emily said. Daniel's stomach dropped. Ah, Vance said. Marcus, hello. Doctor, Marcus said. I didn't realize you two were meeting. We work together, Marcus said. It happens. Another pause. Longer this time. Emily, Vance said, and his voice had changed, and the change was so slight that if you hadn't been listening for it, you'd never have caught it. I want to say something, and I want you to hear it as a friend, and not a physician. You've been under enormous pressure. Q3 is coming. The board's circling. And when people in your position get frightened, they start looking for a villain, because a villain is easier than a disease. A villain you can fire. Emily Carter didn't move. Nobody's looking for a villain, she said. Then what's the sample? What sample? Emily. Aaron, I've got a call at 12:15. Emily, what's the sample? I'll call you tonight, Emily said, and she hung up on him with the heel of her hand. The room stayed absolutely silent for 11 seconds. Then Marcus Hale said very quietly, he knew the lab called him. Yeah, Daniel said. No, listen to me. He knew, and he called her, and he brought it up himself. Marcus was pacing now. Why would you do that if you're guilty? Why would you raise it? Because he's not scared of the lab, Daniel said. Both of them looked at him. He's scared of her, Daniel said. The lab doesn't do anything by itself. A number on a page doesn't do anything. It only matters if she believes it. So he's not trying to stop the test. He's trying to get out in front of what she thinks of the test. He rubbed his face with both hands. He's setting up the story. She's under pressure. She's paranoid. She's looking for a villain. When that number comes back, he wants it to land in a room where everybody's already decided she's not thinking straight. Emily said, "That's what he said to Marcus at 6:15 this morning." Yeah. Cognitive fluctuation. Yeah. He's been building it for months, she said, hasn't he? Daniel didn't answer because the answer was yes, and because she already knew. At 12:31, Marcus Hale asked the question Daniel had been dreading. "Brooks, if we're right, if the numbers come back hot, what actually happens? Legally." "Anything." "Nothing," Daniel said. Marcus stopped pacing. "Say again, nothing happens." Daniel leaned back against the wall because his legs had stopped being reliable. "You'll get a number. Let's say it's lead. Let's say the leach test comes back at 400 parts per billion, which would be catastrophic. You know what he says? He says, 'That's terrible. I'm horrified. I bought that at a craft fair.' He says I had no idea I've given those pictures to dozens of patients I'm going to sue the potter. And every single word of that is unfalsifiable. That's insane." "That's how it works, sir." "He prescribed it. He gifted it. There's no prescription. There's no chart note. I'd bet everything I own there's not one piece of paper anywhere that says Aaron Vance told Emily Carter to drink out of that thing." Daniel looked at her. "Is there—" Emily was very still. "No," she said. "He never wrote it down. He never wrote anything down." Her voice had gone hollow. That was his whole thing. He said charts were how medicine lost the patient. He said, "I don't take notes, Emily. I take you seriously." Marcus Hale sat down. He sat down hard in a chair that wasn't meant for sitting hard in. 22 months, he said. "He said it made me feel heard," Emily said. And then she put her hand over her mouth and Daniel Brooks looked at the floor because a man deserves privacy for that. At 12:44, she got herself back. She got herself back the way Daniel would learn she got everything back, which was all at once like a breaker being thrown. "Okay," she said. "Then we don't wait for the lab." Emily. "Marcus, if the lab doesn't do anything, then the lab isn't the point. And I've been sitting here for an hour treating a piece of pottery like it's the Ark of the Covenant." She was already moving toward the desk. "Daniel, you said 4 lines." "Yes, ma'am." 4 separate exposures. That's what they mean. Then where's the calendar? Daniel felt something move in his chest. "Say that again," he said. "You said the nails are a calendar, so where's the rest of it?" She was pulling open drawers now, one-handed badly, and papers were sliding onto the floor, and she didn't care. 22 months of my life is documented to the minute. I have a calendar. I have expense reports. I have 4 hospitals worth of records. Somewhere in there is a date where I got worse, and then another one and another one and another one. Emily. Marcus said, "You can't." "I can't what, Marcus? You can't turn yourself into a case file." "I've been a case file for 2 years," she shouted. 9 specialists made me a case file. The only difference is, now I get to read it. Nobody said anything. Daniel Brooks pushed off the wall. "I need 3 things," he said. Emily's head came up. "I need every calendar entry for 22 months, Daniel said. "I need every travel record, and I need to know every single day you didn't drink out of that pitcher," Marcus said. "How would she know that?" "Because she left the building," Daniel said. "Vacations, hospital stays, Boston." Emily went white. "Boston," she said. "What about Boston?" "I got better in Boston." Her voice was barely there. 11 days. I got better in Boston, and they called it a placebo response to the trial drug, and they published it. Daniel, they put my numbers in a paper as a placebo response. You didn't take the picture. I couldn't. It's clay. It doesn't fly. She started laughing, and it was the worst sound in the world. I couldn't get it through security. It's a liquid container. They made me leave it. 11 days without it, and I could hold a fork, and 9 specialists called it placebo response. At 1:02, Daniel Brooks sat down at a table on the 22nd floor with a stack of paper 11 inches high and started doing the only thing he'd ever been good at. Emily read out dates. Marcus pulled records. Daniel wrote. March 4th, Emily said. Board offsite. 4 days. Where? Scottsdale. Did you feel worse or better? Better. Write it down, Daniel said. June 11th through 16th, my father's memorial. I stayed at my sister's. Daniel's pen stopped. Your sister's, he said. Yes. Where you'd sent the second picture. Emily Carter's mouth opened. That was the second line, she said. What? That's when it, Daniel. That's when my hand started. Her voice went up. June. It was June, I remember, because I couldn't hold the program at the service. I dropped it. I dropped my father's program on the floor in front of 200 people, and my brother-in-law picked it up and put his hand on my shoulder and said, It's okay. Em, it's the grief. The room went dead. Say his name, Daniel said. What? Your brother-in-law. Say his name out loud. Emily said, Grant Whitaker. At 1:19, Marcus Hale looked up from a laptop and said, Oh, you have got to be kidding me. What? Grant's been buying. Emily's head came around. Say that again, she said. He's been buying your stock. Marcus's face had gone the color of paper. Not a lot. Not enough to file. Every quarter just under the threshold for 7 quarters. He looked up. Emily, he started in October, 23 months ago. That's a month before the conference, Daniel said. Nobody breathed. He started buying, Daniel said slowly, 1 month before he introduced her to Vance. Emily Carter put both hands flat on the table. Marcus, she said. Marcus, look at me. Is my sister in on it? Emily, don't. Janitor. Is my sister in on it? She was screaming now. She was screaming and her hands wouldn't close, and Daniel watched a woman try to make fists out of hands that had forgotten how. She has migraines, Marcus, since February. She's been drinking out of the same thing I've been drinking out of. Is she in on it, or is she drinking it too? I don't know. Which is worse? Emily. Which one is worse, Marcus? Her voice broke apart. Because if she knew I lost my sister 2 years ago and nobody told me, and if she didn't know, she stopped. If she didn't know, then he's poisoning his wife to get my chair, and I handed it to her, and I put a bow on it. At 1:31, Daniel Brooks did the thing that ended his career for the second time in his life. He said, somebody has to call her. No, Marcus said. Somebody has to call her and get that picture out of that house today. Brooks, if we call her, she calls Grant, and Grant calls Vance, and we lose the only advantage Then we lose it, Daniel said. Marcus stood up. You don't get a vote, he said. I know. You've been here 3 days. I know, sir. This is a $9 billion company, and there's a woman in a house right now with a jug of poison on her counter. Daniel's voice tore out of him, and it filled that whole floor. I'm sorry, sir. But I sat in a room 14 years ago and let a lawyer tell me a number was statistically insignificant, and I went home and I let it go, and there is a man in Ohio who is 58 years old and can't walk up his own stairs because I let it go. He was shaking. I'm not asking you for a vote. I'm telling you what I'm going to do at 2 o'clock if nobody else does it. Marcus Hale stared at him. You'd lose your job, he said. Yes, sir. You've got a daughter. Yes, sir. That's why. Emily Carter said, Marcus, give me the phone. At 1:38, the call connected. M. A woman's voice, light, confused. It's the middle of the day, is everything? Claire. Emily's voice was so steady it was terrifying. Claire, I need you to do something, and I need you to not ask me why until it's done. Okay. The picture I gave you for Christmas. The clay one. Is it in the house? A pause. Yeah. Where? On the counter. Why? Are you drinking out of it? What is? Claire, are you drinking out of it? Every day, Claire said. Grant fills it up every morning before work. He says it's the one healthy thing Emily Carter closed her eyes. Daniel Brooks watched a woman receive the worst information of her life and not make a sound. Claire, Emily said. Listen to me very carefully. I want you to pour it out, right now, while I'm on the phone, and I want you to put it in a bag and put it in your car and drive it to the address I'm about to send you, and I don't want you to tell Grant. The line went quiet. Claire said. Why would you say don't tell Grant? At 1:44, Claire Whitaker started to cry, and it was not the crying of a woman who knew. It was the crying of a woman who had just done the math. He fills it every morning, she said. He fills it every morning. Claire. He watches me drink it. Her voice went to pieces. He stands there. I thought it was sweet. I told my friends it was sweet. I said he's so careful with me. Claire, listen to me. My head, she was gasping. My head hurts every day since February. And he keeps saying we should see somebody, and I keep saying it's fine. And he keeps saying we should see somebody, and I thought he was being... She stopped. Who does he want me to see? Claire said. Emily Carter didn't answer. Emily, who does he want me to see? Aaron Vance, Emily said. The sound Claire Whitaker made was not a word. At 1:51, Marcus Hale said, We need lawyers. No, Daniel said. Brooks, I'm not asking. Sir, if you call lawyers, lawyers will tell you to stop. He was already moving, already pulling paper. That's their job. That's a good job and they're right to do it. But they'll say don't contact the suspect, don't preserve informally, don't talk to the wife, and every one of those is correct. And every one of those costs us the next 12 hours. He looked up. Call them at 6. Call them at 6 and hand them a box. Don't call them now and ask permission to make one. Marcus Hale looked at this man in a borrowed goods shirt, and something in his face gave way. Who were you? He said. Nobody, sir. Brooks. I was a guy who wrote reports nobody read, Daniel said. Then I was a guy who wrote one they did. At 2:14, Daniel's phone buzzed. It was Priya from the lab. He put it on speaker with hands that had gone numb. Mr. Brooks. Yes, ma'am. I'm not supposed to call you. I'm supposed to call the client contact, and I'm supposed to wait for the full panel. Okay. I ran the screen. Her voice was strange. I ran the 24-hour screen, and I'm looking at the preliminary, and I need to ask you a question before I write anything down. Ask it. Is somebody drinking out of this? Nobody in that room made a sound. Ma'am, Daniel said. How bad? Mr. Brooks, the action level for lead in drinking water is 15 parts per billion. A pause. I'm looking at 1100. Marcus Hale said, Jesus Christ. That's not the part, Priya said. What? That's not the part I called about. Daniel could hear her breathing. The leads from the glaze. That happens. That's a real thing, cheap glaze, bad kiln. It's tragic, but it's common. That's not why I'm calling. Daniel closed his eyes. Say it, he said. There's thallium in this, Priya said. The floor came out from under the room. Say that again, Daniel said. Thallium, 81 micrograms per liter. Her voice was shaking now. Mr. Brooks, thallium doesn't leach out of clay. It's not in glaze. It's not in the earth in any amount that does this. There's no manufacturing process on this planet that puts thallium in a water pitcher. A long pause. Somebody put it in there. Emily Carter made a sound like she'd been hit. "Mr. Brooks," Priya said, "how long has this person been drinking it?" 22 months. That's not... She stopped. That's not possible. Why? Because they'd be dead, Priya said. At 222, Emily Carter said She stopped. Emily, who fills your pitcher? Emily Carter's face did something Daniel would never forget. Housekeeping, she said. At 2:26, Daniel Brooks understood everything, and it was so much worse than he thought. Nadia, he said. What? Nadia had this floor for 9 years. He couldn't feel his hands. Nadia had this floor for 9 years, and she quit 2 weeks ago, and Ray said she got written up for moving a paperweight 2 inches. Marcus said, So, who wrote her up? Perkins. Why? Daniel's voice cracked. Why does a woman with 9 years get written up over a paperweight, unless somebody needed her gone? Unless somebody needed her gone, and needed a reason that nobody would ever look at twice, because who in this building has ever once looked twice at housekeeping? The room was silent. Somebody's been filling that pitcher every morning for 22 months, Daniel said. Somebody with a key, a card, and a uniform. Somebody that 9,000 people walk past every single day and never see. He looked up. And 2 weeks ago, they got rid of the only person who'd been doing it long enough to notice something was wrong. Emily Carter whispered, Then who's filling it now? And Daniel Brooks went absolutely completely cold. Emily, he said, how's the pitcher been getting filled the last 2 weeks? It's been full every morning. Emily, it's been full every morning, Daniel. I never filled it, Daniel said. At 2:31, nobody moved. I've had this floor 11 days, Daniel said, and his voice didn't sound like his own. I never touched that pitcher except to wipe up under it. I never filled it, not once. Marcus Hale said very slowly, Then who's in this building at night? And that was the moment Emily Carter's office phone rang. Internal line, 3 digits on the display. Marcus looked at it. That's the lobby, he said. Emily answered it. Ms. Carter. A young voice, nervous. Ma'am, I'm sorry to bother you. There's a gentleman here for you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says you'll want to see him. Who is it? A pause. He says his name is Dr. Aaron Vance, the kid said. Ma'am, he's already in the elevator. At 2:32, Daniel Brooks said, Don't hang up. Emily still had the lobby phone at her ear. What? Don't hang up. Ask the kid a question. Daniel was already across the room. Ask him if Vance is carrying anything. Emily didn't ask why. She just said it. Son, is he carrying anything? Ma'am. Bag. Box. Anything in his hands? A pause. Yes, ma'am. He's got it's like a gift bag, white one. He's holding it kinda careful. Emily Carter looked up and her eyes met Daniel's, and neither one of them said the word out loud. Thank you, she said, and hung up. Marcus Hale said, What? What was that? He's bringing her a new one, Daniel said. A new what? A new pitcher, Marcus. Emily's voice tore. The lab called him this morning about a ceramic sample. He knows the old one's gone. He's bringing a clean one, so that when anybody ever asks, there's a pitcher on my desk and it's fine. And everybody says, look, she still uses it. She loves it. She's been drinking out of it for 2 years and she's fine. Marcus went the color of ash. He's replacing the evidence, he said. He's replacing the story, Daniel said. Nobody remembers the object. Everybody remembers the story. At 2:34, Marcus Hale said, Then we take him, right now. Security's 4 floors down. I make one call, he never gets off that elevator. No, Daniel said. Brooks. On what charge, sir? He. On what charge? Daniel got in front of him. A man came to a building with a gift. That's it. That's what you've got. You detain a physician in a lobby with 9,000 employees and no warrant and no complaint and no chain of custody older than 4 hours, and you know what happens tomorrow. He's the victim. He's on television by Thursday. Sick CEO, paranoid corporate henchman grabbed me in a lobby. So we do nothing. We let him talk, Daniel said. Emily said, "What? He came here to say something, so let him say it." Daniel's hands were shaking, and he pressed them flat against his legs. Right now, he doesn't know what we know. He knows a lab called him about a sample. That's all. If we sit here and act guilty, we teach him. If we sit here and act sick, he teaches us. Marcus stared at him. You want her to lie to him? He said. I want her to let him lie to her. At 2:35, Emily Carter said, Daniel, get behind the door. Ma'am, he can't see you. She was already moving papers, sliding the lab printouts under a folder, her hands clumsy and furious. Marcus, sit down. Sit down. You look like a man at a funeral. Daniel the coroner, behind the credenza. He never looks at that side of the room. He always sits with his back to the window because he likes the light on his face. Daniel didn't move. Emily, if I'm in this room and he finds me here, I'm done. Not fired. Done. He'll bury me, and he'll use my name to bury you. Emily Carter looked at him. Then go, she said. That's not... I'm serious. Go home. Go make your daughter breakfast. Her voice cracked right down the middle. You did the thing, Daniel. You did it. You noticed. That's what you owed me, and you paid it, and nobody would blame you for... Emily. Go. Daniel Brooks stood in the middle of that office for 2 full seconds. Then he walked to the corner and sat down on the floor behind the credenza out of the sightline with his back to the wall. I'm not good at leaving, he said. At 2:38, the elevator opened. Emily heard him before she saw him. That was the thing about Aaron Vance. You always heard him first. The easy voice, already talking, already halfway through a sentence with somebody's assistant, already making a stranger laugh. No, don't announce me. I'm not a client. I'm just a friend. And then warm as a hand on your back. Emily. Aaron. You look tired. You said that on the phone. I meant it both times. A rustle. Something set down on the desk. I brought you something. Behind the credenza, Daniel Brooks stopped breathing. What is it? Emily said. Open it. Aaron. Emily, open it. It's a gift, not a subpoena. Paper. Tissue paper. And then Emily Carter's voice, and Daniel could hear her holding it together with both hands. It's the same one. It's the sister to that one, Vance said. Same Potter, same clay bed. I called her this morning and she had one left, and I drove out to Fairhope and back before lunch because I thought she's had a hard week and there's a thing on her desk she loves, and it's gone. How'd you know it was gone? The smallest pause in the world. Because a lab called me about a ceramic sample, Vance said pleasantly, and I'm not an idiot. Marcus Hale said, Doctor. Marcus. Hey. Sorry. I didn't mean to walk in on... He stopped. Actually, you know what? Good. I'm glad you're here, because I want to say this in front of somebody who's known her longer than I have. At 2:41, Aaron Vance made his move, and Daniel Brooks sat on the floor 11 feet away and listened to a man work. Emily, somebody's talking to you. What? Somebody's in your ear. His voice was so kind. That was the thing Daniel would never be able to explain to anybody afterward. It was so kind. Somebody's got you thinking about heavy metals, and I'm not mad. I want you to hear that first. I'm not mad. I'm not offended. I'm not even surprised. Because you've been sick for 2 years, and no one's given you an answer, And when nobody gives you an answer, the human brain makes one. Aaron, let me finish. Please. Let me finish, and then you can throw me out. A chair moved. Emily, I have watched you go through 9 specialists. 9. And every single one of them told you the same thing in a different suit. And the reason that's unbearable, the reason it's unbearable, M, is not the disease. It's that there's nobody to be angry at. Nobody said anything. And then along comes a story, Vance said. And the story has a villain. And God, isn't that a relief? Isn't that the first time in 2 years anything's made sense? Emily Carter said very quietly, You're saying I made it up. I'm saying you're the smartest person I've ever met, and you're in pain, and those 2 things together will build you a cathedral out of nothing. At 2:44, Marcus Hale said, Doctor, did you tell her to drink out of it? The room went still. Did I what? 22 months ago, did you tell Emily Carter to drink exclusively from that pitcher? And Aaron Vance laughed. He laughed like a man hearing a decent joke. Marcus, I gave her a cup. Answer the question. I gave her a cup at the end of a consultation because she just told me she drank nothing but cold brew and Diet Coke, and I said, Here, this is pretty, put water in it. His voice was easy. Did I say exclusively? I don't know. I might have. I say a lot of things. I've had 4,000 patients, Marcus. I'm not going to sit here and reconstruct a sentence from 2 years ago so you can carve it on my headstone. There's no chart note, Marcus said. There's no chart at all, Vance said cheerfully. That's not a scandal, that's my practice model. It's on my website. Behind the credenza, Daniel Brooks closed his eyes. There it is, he thought. He's had this speech ready for 2 years. At 2:47, Emily Carter said the sentence that turned the room. Aaron, where'd you go this morning? What? You said you drove to Fairhope before lunch. Yes. You said you called the Potter this morning and she had one left and you drove out there and back. Emily, Aaron the lab called you at 10:40. Emily's voice had gone dead calm. You told me that yourself on the phone at 12:04. You said a lab called you about a chain of custody. A beat. So how'd you know the pitcher was gone before the lab called you? Silence. Real silence. The first one. Daniel Brooks, sitting on the floor of an office with his heart trying to come out through his ribs, thought, There she is. That's not... Vance stopped. Emily, I'm not going to do a deposition in your office. It's a question. It's a trap, and it's beneath you, and it's exactly what I'm talking about. How did you know Aaron? Because Grant called me, Vance said. And the whole world stopped. At 2:49, nobody in that room made a sound. Grant, Emily said. Grant Whitaker, your brother-in-law. My patient and your board member, and the man who's been telling me for 6 months that he's worried sick about you. Grant called you. Yes. About my pitcher. About you, Emily. When? I don't know this morning. When Aaron? Around 6. Vance snapped, and the kindness went out of his voice like a light going off, and it did not come back. Around 6 a.m. he called me, and he said Emily's been acting strange and Claire's upset, and something's going on at the office, and I said what? And he said, I don't know, but she's been talking about the water. Marcus Hale said quietly, at 6 in the morning. Yes, Dr. Emily didn't tell anybody about the water, Marcus said. Not her assistant, not her sister, not me. She told exactly one person at 9 o'clock at night in a locked office with no phone in the room. He leaned forward. So how did Grant Whitaker know by 6 a.m.? Aaron Vance did not answer. At 2:52, Daniel Brooks made the second worst decision of his life. He stood up. He heard Emily's breath catch. He heard Marcus say his name. And he walked out from behind the credenza in his one good shirt with his hands empty at his sides, and looked Dr. Aaron Vance in the face for the first time. And Aaron Vance looked back at him. And something happened in that man's face that Daniel had never seen on a human being before. It wasn't fear, it was recognition, and it arrived slowly like a tide. "No," Vance said. "Sir, no, no, no." Vance actually laughed once, a short, shocked bark. "Brooks." Daniel's stomach dropped through the floor. Emily said, "You know him?" "Do I know him?" Vance turned all the way around in his chair. "Daniel Brooks, Ohio, 2000, what was it? 11-12. 12, Daniel said. 12. Vance's whole body had changed. He was leaning back now, comfortable, delighted, a man who had just found a 20 in an old coat. Emily, do you know who this is? Do you have any idea who's been whispering in your ear?" "Aaron? He shut down a plant." Vance was grinning. "He shut down a chemical plant in Ohio for 9 days over a gasket. 400 men out of work. And you know what the final report said? Statistically insignificant exposure. You know who wrote that?" Daniel Brooks felt the room tilt. "Sir," he said, "don't." "I wrote it," Vance said. At 2:54, Emily Carter said, "What? I was the independent medical consultant?" Vance spread his hands. "That's what I did before all this. Litigation support. Somebody claims exposure. Somebody else says prove it. And a guy like me reads the numbers and writes what they mean." He was still smiling. "And this man, I sat in a conference room with him for 6 hours and he would not let it go. He had one gasket and a smell in a drain line, and he was ready to burn 400 jobs to the ground over it. And I told him, Emily, I told him to his face, I said, Mr. Brooks being right isn't a personality." Nobody spoke. "So no," Vance said. "I'm not surprised. I'm relieved. Because for 6 hours today, I've been trying to figure out who could possibly have gotten inside your head, and it turns out it's the one man on Earth who spent 14 years looking for a rematch." At 2:56, Emily Carter said, "Was he right?" Vance blinked. "Sorry." "In Ohio." Her voice was very quiet. "Was he right?" "That's not—" "Aaron, was the exposure real?" "The exposure was statistically. Was it real, Aaron?" Aaron Vance's mouth closed. And Emily Carter said, "Marcus, get out. Take the doctor with you." "Emily." Vance stood. "Get out of my office." "Emily, listen to me." And the kindness was back, instant, complete, like a coat being put on. "Emily, I have been good to you." "You have," she said. "That's what I can't get over. You were the only one who called me on Sundays. You were—" Something moved across Aaron Vance's face, and for 1/2 second, Daniel Brooks would have sworn on his daughter's life that it was real. "I'll come back Monday," Vance said, "when you've slept." "Don't." "Monday, Emily." And he walked out and he left the new picture on the desk, and none of them touched it. At 3:04, Marcus Hale sat down and put his face in his hands. "He's going to Grant," he said. "Yes," Daniel said. "He's going to Grant, and Grant's going to the board, and by Monday there's going to be a very calm, very sad memo that says our CEO has been experiencing cognitive fluctuation and is being manipulated by a janitor with a grudge who's already destroyed one company." He looked up. "And Brooks, I'm sorry, son, but every word of that memo is going to be technically true." Daniel said, "I know." "Do you?" "Sir, I've read that memo before. It had my name in it that time, too." At 3:06, Emily Carter said, "Then we don't have till Monday. We have till Monday." "That's the same?" "It's not the same thing, Marcus, and I need you to hear the difference." She was up against the desk, both hands flat, and her arms were shaking with the effort of holding herself there. "Monday is when the story gets told. Whoever's got the better story on Monday morning wins. And right now, Honestly, truthfully, his is better than ours. Because his is simple. She looked at Daniel. So we need one thing. One thing that can't be talked around. The picture's not enough, Daniel said. Why not, there's thallium in it. And on Monday he says a janitor with a 14-year grudge had unsupervised night access to that picture for 11 days before it went to the lab. The room went dead. Marcus Hale said very slowly, "Oh my God." "Yeah," Daniel said. "He'd say you put it there. He will say I put it there. It's the best move on the board, and he's already found it. That's why he was smiling." Daniel's voice was flat. "I'm not the witness, sir. I'm the defense." Emily said, "Daniel." "I'm the reason it goes away," Daniel said. "That's what I am now." At 3:11, Emily Carter said, "Then find me somebody who isn't you." And Daniel Brooks looked up. "Say that again," he said. "You said somebody's been filling that pitcher every morning for 22 months. Emily's eyes were burning. "Somebody with a key and a cart. You said you never touched it. So somebody's been in this office at 4 in the morning, and it wasn't you, and it wasn't me." "Badge logs," Marcus said, already reaching for the laptop. "Cameras," Daniel said. "There's no camera in my office." "There's a camera on the elevator bank," Marcus said. "There's a camera on every elevator bank in this building. It's insurance." "How long does it hold?" Marcus was typing. 30 days. "That's enough," Daniel said. "That's enough for 2 weeks. That's enough to see who's been coming up here since Nadia left." At 3:19, the badge log came up. Marcus Hale scrolled, and then he stopped, and he did not say anything for a very long time. "Marcus." "Emily." "Marcus what?" "Nadia Okonkwo's badge has been used on 22 every weekday at 4:05 in the morning," Marcus said. "For the last 2 weeks." "She quit," Daniel said. "Yes." "She turned in her badge. She has to. That's the exit procedure. Perkins does it herself." "She turned it in," Marcus said. "It's in the system. Badge returned March 19th, signed by Perkins." "Then who's using it?" At 3:24, Daniel Brooks said, "Get Perkins." "Brooks, get her up here right now." At 3:41, Ms. Perkins stood on the 22nd floor for the first time in her 11 years with the company, and her hands would not stay still on her lanyard. "Ma'am, I want to say I've never had a write-up." "Nobody's writing you up," Emily said. 11 years, and I run a clean operation." "Ms. Perkins." Emily Carter's voice was gentle, and that was somehow worse. 2 weeks ago, you wrote up a 9-year employee for moving a paperweight." Perkins' face did something complicated. "That's ma'am, that's a documented." "Why?" "It's policy." "Why that policy that day, that woman?" Daniel said. "Ma'am, please." And Ms. Perkins turned and looked at him, and her whole face collapsed. "Because I got an email," she said. Nobody moved. "From who?" Emily said. "Facilities. Corporate facilities, not us, the umbrella account, the one that handles the leases." Her voice had gone thin. "It said there'd been a confidentiality concern on 22. It said the executive floor needed a personnel refresh. It said at management's discretion." She was gripping the lanyard with both fists. "Ma'am, it said at management's discretion. That's, I've been here 11 years, ma'am. That phrase means do it, and don't ask." "So you found a paperweight," Daniel said. "I found a reason," Perkins said, and then her voice broke, and Daniel Brooks watched a woman with a laminated sign that said, "The answer is no until it isn't come apart," in front of her CEO. She'd been here 9 years. She had a kid at state. She asked me why, and I said contract's the contract, and she cried in my office, and I said contract's the contract again, because I didn't have anything else. "Miss Perkins." Emily said quietly. Who sent the email? It's an account, Perkins whispered. It's not a person. It's the facilities account, ma'am. It's a box. Marcus Hale said, Who has access to the facilities account? At 3:47, Marcus Hale said, Board members have read right on facilities. It's a legacy permission, from when there were 4 trucks. Emily Carter closed her eyes. My father set that up, she said. At 3:52, Daniel Brooks said, Ms. Perkins, one more. Sir. Nobody had called her ma'am, and then asked her a question like that in 11 years, and Daniel watched her notice it. Somebody's been badging onto this floor at 4:05 in the morning using Nadia's badge, he said. For 2 weeks. Who's in this building at 4 in the morning? Nobody. Nights ends at 4. Somebody is. Sir, at 4 a.m., there's the lobby, kid, there's the guy who does the loading dock, there's... She stopped. There's who? Ms. Perkins' face went strange. There's the shift lead, she said. At 3:58, Marcus Hale pulled the elevator footage. He pulled it, and he turned the laptop around so all 4 of them could see, and he scrubbed to 4:04 a.m. that morning, and Daniel Brooks leaned in and watched the elevator doors open on the 22nd floor, and a man pushed a cart out of it. An old man, 70 years old, moving slow, favoring his left hip, and he stopped in the middle of that hallway, and he stood there for a long moment with both hands on the cart, not moving the way a man stands at the edge of cold water. Daniel Brooks stopped breathing. He knew that cart. He knew that hip. He'd eaten half that man's sandwich 11 days ago. Daniel, Emily said. Daniel, who is that? And Daniel Brooks heard himself say from very far away, That's the man who gave me this floor. At 4:01, nobody in that room said anything, and Daniel Brooks put both hands on the table because he had to put them somewhere. Daniel, Emily's voice was careful. Who is he? Ray Delgado. Who is Ray Delgado? He's been here 26 years, Ms. Perkins said quietly. He's the night shift lead. He trained me. Marcus Hale said, Brooks, look at me. Do you know this man? Yes, sir. How well? Daniel Brooks heard himself laugh, and it came out wrong. He gave me half his sandwich 11 days ago because he thought I hadn't eaten, he said. He was right. I hadn't. At 4:03, Marcus scrubbed the footage forward, and they watched a 70-year-old man push a cart down a hallway at 4 in the morning and stand outside Emily Carter's door for 11 seconds without going in. He's stopping, Emily said. Yeah. Why is he stopping? Play it again, Daniel said. Marcus played it again. 11 seconds. A man standing at a door with both hands on a cart. He doesn't want to go in, Daniel said. Brooks. Sir. Look at him. Look at his hands. Daniel's voice had gone thin. That's not a man doing a job. That's a man making himself do a job. At 4:06, Emily said, Bring him in. Ma'am, his shift starts at 8. Ms. Perkins? Emily didn't raise her voice. Call him. Tell him there's an issue on 22. Tell him nothing else. Ma'am, if he's done something, shouldn't we? Call him. At 4:44, Ray Delgado walked onto the 22nd floor in his work shirt, with his name stitched over the pocket, and he saw 4 people waiting for him, and Daniel Brooks watched something go out of the old man's face. He didn't ask what this was about. That was the part Daniel would think about for the rest of his life. Ray Delgado did not ask what this was about. He just said, Okay. Mr. Delgado, Emily said. Sit down. I'll stand, ma'am. Ray, Daniel said. Don't. Ray still hadn't looked at him. Don't say my name like that, hee-ho. Ray, look at me. I'd rather not. At 4:47, Marcus Hale turned the laptop around. Ray Delgado looked at the screen. He looked at himself on it standing at a door at 4 in the morning. Then he said, "How much do you know?" Emily Carter said, "Enough." "That's not an answer." "Mr. Delgado, there's thallium in my water," Emily said. 81 micrograms. Somebody's been putting it in the pitcher on that desk every morning for 22 months, and I'm told that if I'd been drinking it at that concentration the whole time, I'd already be dead. So I don't know enough. I know a number, and I know your face. Ray Delgado's hands came up to his mouth. And the old man said, "Every third day." At 4:48, the room stopped. "What?" Daniel said. "I did it every third day," Ray said. "Not every day, every third." "Ray." "He gave me the bottle and he said every morning." Ray's voice was steady, which was somehow the most terrible thing about it. "And I couldn't. I couldn't do it every morning. So I did it every third day, and I told him every day, and he never checked, because men like that never check." Emily Carter made a sound. 22 months, she said. "Yes, ma'am. You've been poisoning me for 22 months. "Yes, ma'am." "And you paced it." "Yes, ma'am," Ray Delgado said. "Because I couldn't stop it, but I could slow it down." At 4:51, Daniel Brooks said the only word he had. "Why?" And Ray Delgado finally looked at him. "Sophia," he said. Nobody said anything. "My wife's been on dialysis 11 years, Ray said. 11 years, 3 times a week, 4 hours a session. You know what that costs when the plan runs out, because it runs out. Everybody thinks it doesn't, but it does. There's a number, and one day you're past it." He wasn't crying. His voice just didn't work right. 23 months ago, a man came to me in the parking garage. Nice man, nice coat. He knew her name. He knew her doctor's name. He said, "Mr. Delgado, I understand your wife needs a transplant, and I understand you're $41,000 behind." Marcus Hale said, "Grant." He never said his name. Was he on the board? "I don't know who's on the board," Ray said. "I clean the room they meet in." At 4:54, Emily said, "What did he tell you it was wrong?" "Vitamins." "Vitamins." That's what he said. Ray's face broke finally all at once. He said it was a supplement. He said the doctor wanted it in the water, and the doctor didn't want the patient to know because patients don't comply. He said she's stubborn, she won't take it if she sees it. This is how we help her. And you believed that? For 11 days, Ray said. The room went dead silent. 11 days, Ray said. And then I looked at the bottle. There's no label on a vitamin bottle. There's no label on anything that's good for you. His hands were shaking. And I went back to him and I said, "I'm out. I'm not doing it." And he said, he stopped. "Say it," Emily said. He said, "You've already done it 11 times. At 4:56, Daniel Brooks put his hand over his eyes. He said, "You've already done it 11 times, Mr. Delgado, and there's a camera in that hallway, and if you stop now, the only thing that changes is that your wife dies broke and you die in prison." Ray was gripping the back of a chair he wouldn't sit in. And then he wrote a check, $41,000. He put it in my hand in a parking garage and he said, "Now you're paid." "And you cashed it," Marcus said. "I cashed it in April, and she got her surgery in June, and she's alive," Ray Delgado said, and his voice tore in half. "She's alive, she's home, she's alive, and every third day for 2 years I've walked onto this floor at 4 in the morning and poisoned a woman in a wheelchair so my wife could keep breathing, and I would like somebody in this room to tell me what I was supposed to do." Nobody did. Nobody in that room said one word because there wasn't one. At 5:01, Emily Carter said, "Look at me." Ray Delgado looked at her. 22 months, Emily said. "I built this company from 4 trucks. My father drove one of them. And I've spent 2 years learning how to sign my own name with a fist because my fingers don't close. I've had 9 specialists tell me to adapt. I've been in an MRI machine 41 times. I have a bruise on my hip that has not healed since April because I can't shift my own weight in this chair anymore." Her voice was completely level. "And you did that. Not the doctor, not the man in the garage. You, your hands, Every third day. Yes, ma'am? Say it. I did that, Ray Delgado said. Why'd you pace it? Ma'am. You said every third day. Why? And Ray Delgado said, because I wanted you to still be here when I found a way out. At 5:03, Emily Carter said, Did you find one? And the old man reached into his shirt pocket. At 5:04, Ray Delgado put a plastic sandwich bag on the desk. Inside it was a small brown glass bottle with no label. That's the last one, he said. There's about a third left. He gives me a new one every 8 weeks. He leaves it in the same place every time, level 3 behind the pipe north stairwell. There's a camera on that stairwell. It doesn't work. Everybody knows it doesn't work. It's been broke since 2019. Marcus Hale had gone absolutely white. You kept it, he said. I kept all of them. The room stopped breathing. All of them, Daniel said. 14 bottles, Ray Delgado said. In a shoebox in my garage. Every one he ever gave me, and every envelope, and the check stub, and the date, and the time I wrote on the bottom of each one with a marker because... He stopped. He looked at Daniel. Because I figured someday somebody would ask when it started, and everybody'd have a different answer. Daniel Brooks felt the floor go out from under him. Ray, he said, you said it yourself, hee-ho, 11 days ago, in the hallway. Ray's mouth did something that wasn't a smile. You said you'd rather have the trash than the opinions. Ray, I didn't... You didn't know, Ray said. You never knew. Why do you think I gave you this floor? At 5:07, the whole room turned. What? Emily said. Nadia had this floor 9 years, Ray said. Nadia never looked at anything. Nadia's a good woman, and she does what they tell her, and she never once in 9 years looked at that picture. He was staring at Daniel. And then a man comes onto my crew with 14 years of hazmat in his file, and he takes a night bus to clean an office because his kid needs an inhaler, and he can't help himself. He can't help himself. He looks at everything. Daniel couldn't speak. When Nadia got walked out, they told me to fill the slot, Ray said. And I could have put anybody on 22. Anybody. I've got 12 people. His voice broke. I put you on it, Daniel. I put you on it, and I went home, and I sat in my truck in the driveway for an hour, and I prayed to God you were as bad at leaving things alone as I thought you were. At 5:09, Marcus Hale said, You used him. Yes, sir. You put a man with a 7-year-old in front of a... Yes, sir, Ray Delgado said. I did. And if he'd looked away, I'd have kept doing it every third day until she died, and then I'd have gone home and made my wife her breakfast. That's who I am. I want that written down somewhere. He looked at Emily. I want that in whatever paper they make. Don't make me into a good man, ma'am. I let it go on for 2 years, and I made a stranger do the part I was too much of a coward to do. At 5:11, Emily Carter said, Sit down, Mr. Delgado. Ma'am, sit down. And Ray Delgado sat. At 5:14, Marcus Hale called the lawyers. At 5:40, the lawyers said stop. At 5:41, Emily Carter said no. Ms. Carter, I'm advising you. I heard you. He's a co-conspirator, and he's sitting in the room, and everything he says from this second forward is what I want on the record, Emily said. Every word, write it all down. Write down that I let him sit in my office. Write down that I gave him water. Write down that I'm going to say in a deposition under oath that this man paced the dose and kept the bottles and put the one person in this building who'd notice on my floor. Her voice didn't move. Because that's true, and I'm done with rooms where the true thing doesn't get said. At 6:02, Daniel Brooks called his daughter. Mrs. Okafor, can you put her on hay? Hey, baby. Daddy. Furious. You're supposed to be asleep. I know. It's 6. I know, Mads. Did you sift the sand? Daniel Brooks stood in a hallway on the 22nd floor with his hand over his eyes. "No," he said. "No, baby, I didn't sift the sand." "Daddy? I'm sorry. The habitat's Monday." "I know. Are you okay?" She said it fast. She said it in the small voice she used maybe twice a year. "Daddy, your voice is doing a thing." "I'm okay." "You're doing the thing." "Madison." Daniel had to stop and get his breath. "Baby, I did something today. I did the thing I promised your mom I'd never do again." "What thing?" "I noticed something." A pause. "That's not bad," Maddie said. "Sometimes it's bad." "Daddy, that's literally your whole personality," his 7-year-old said, and Daniel Brooks laughed so hard he had to sit down on the floor of an executive hallway. At 6:31, Marcus Hale came out and found him there. "Brooks." "Sir?" "Grant Whitaker's on his way." Daniel stood up. "What?" "Vance called him. Grant called Emily. He's coming in to, quote, sit down with her as family." Marcus's face was gray. "He'll be here in 40 minutes. Sir, you cannot let that man in this." "She's already said yes." At 7:14, Grant Whitaker walked onto the 22nd floor. Daniel Brooks was in the corner. Marcus was at the table. 2 lawyers were in the room, and one of them had a phone recording on the desk in plain sight, and Grant Whitaker looked right at it and smiled. "Em," he said. "God, you look tired." "Everybody keeps saying that, because it's true." He sat. "Claire's beside herself. She called me crying. She said you told her to pour out a pitcher." "Where's Claire?" "She's at home." "Grant, where's my sister?" "She's at home. Emily, she's got a migraine. She's had one for months." He stopped. He put his hands flat on the table, and he looked around at the lawyers and the phone and the old janitor sitting in a chair by the wall, and Grant Whitaker's face did something Daniel had never seen a human face do. It relaxed. "Ah," he said. "Okay." At 7:16, Emily Carter said, "October." "What about it?" "You started buying my stock in October, 23 months ago, just under the filing threshold 7 quarters in a row." She leaned forward. "And a month later, you introduced me to Aaron Vance." Grant Whitaker looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, "Your father would have done the same thing." At 7:17, the whole room went cold. "Excuse me," Emily said. "He'd have done it faster." Grant's voice was perfectly calm. "Em, you were going to run this company into the ground. You know that. Everybody in that boardroom knows it. You wanted to buy Norfolk in a down cycle. You wanted to unionize the hubs. You wanted to pay people. So you poisoned me. Don't be dramatic." "Grant." "I made a series of decisions," Grant Whitaker said, "and every one of them was reversible until you made it not." At 7:19, Daniel Brooks said, "Sir, your wife's been drinking it." Grant Whitaker's head turned, and Daniel watched the exact moment the calm came off that man, and it came off like paint. "That's not—" Grant stopped. "That's not what that was." "Sir, that was cover." He said it before he could stop himself. He said it, and Daniel heard the lawyer's pen stop moving. "It was, if Emily got sick and nobody else did, that's a story. If 2 sisters get sick, that's genetic, that's environmental, that's nothing, that's Claire was never in danger. It was a fraction of the—" "How much of a fraction, Grant?" Emily said. And Grant Whitaker did not answer. At 7:21, Emily Carter said the quietest sentence of the whole thing. "She has migraines," she said, "since February, every day. And she never went to a doctor because she thought she was being difficult." Grant said nothing. "She thought she was being difficult, Grant." Grant Whitaker looked at the table. "She's fine," he said. "You don't know that." "She's fine." "You don't know that," Emily screamed, "because you never tested it either." At 7:24, Grant Whitaker stood up and said, "I want my lawyer." And Ray Delgado, from a chair against the wall, said, "Level 3, north stairwell, behind the pipe." Grant froze. "Every 8 weeks, Ray said. You wore the gray coat the first 4 times. Then you started wearing the brown one because I told you the gray one showed up on the dock camera and you thanked me." Ray's voice was absolutely steady. "You said good eye, Delgado." Grant Whitaker turned around very slowly. "Who the hell are you?" he said. And Ray Delgado said, "Nobody." That was the point. At 7:27, Grant Whitaker was walked out of the building by 2 lawyers and 1 very confused security guard, and he did not say another word, and Daniel Brooks watched him go and felt nothing at all. At 7:41, Emily Carter said, "Marcus, where's Vance?" "He's at home." "He said he'd come Monday." "Emily, he's not coming Monday," Emily said. "He's writing. Right now tonight he's sitting at a desk somewhere writing 22 months of chart notes that don't exist yet, and by Monday there'll be a file, and the file will say, 'I refused his advice,' and it'll say, 'I was non-compliant,' and it'll say, 'He warned me about the pitcher.'" Marcus said, "He doesn't keep charts." "He'll keep them now." Daniel Brooks said, "Then it's already too late." Emily's head came up. "What?" "Ma'am, whatever he's writing, it's written." Daniel came off the wall. "You can't beat a man to a piece of paper. But you don't have to." "Why not?" "Because Ray's bottles have dates on the bottom," Daniel said. 14 bottles, 14 dates in marker in a shoebox in a garage. And the man who wrote them didn't know what a chart note was, and he wasn't building a case, and he had absolutely nothing to gain. He looked at Emily. "You know what a jury does with that? They believe it. Because he's the only person in this entire story who wrote something down when nobody was watching." The room was silent. Marcus Hale said, "Brooks, what was in the bottle?" At 9:52 that night, the lab called back. Priya's voice was different this time. Flat. "Thallium sulfate," she said. "It's an old rodenticide. It's been banned in this country since 1972 because it's colorless, it's odorless, it's tasteless in water, and it kills people slowly enough that nobody ever calls it murder." Nobody said anything. "Mr. Brooks," Priya said, "whoever bought this knew exactly what it does." At 9:54, Emily Carter said, "Say the last part again." "Ma'am?" "You said nobody calls it murder." That's what the literature says. It presents as a neuropathy, it looks like. "It looks like an incurable neurological disease," Emily Carter said. "Yes, ma'am." 9 specialists, Emily said. 4 hospitals. $241,000. And it was a rat poison that's been illegal since before I was born. Priya said very quietly, "Ma'am, it's not their fault. Nobody tests for it. There's no reason to test for it. It's not on any panel. You'd have to already suspect it." And Emily Carter said, "Somebody did." At 10:02, Emily Carter looked across her office at a man in a borrowed shirt. "Daniel." "Ma'am?" "How'd you know?" "I didn't." "How'd you know?" Daniel Brooks stood there for a long time. "I didn't know anything," he said. "I saw 4 lines on your fingernails, and I saw a pitcher that didn't belong on that desk, and I smelled something in the water when I wiped it up. That's all. 3 things that don't fit." He shrugged, and it cost him something. "Any one of them's nothing. All 3 of them's a pattern. That's the whole job, ma'am. That's the entire job I did for 14 years. Small clues become life-changing when they form a pattern." "Oh, imam yon." "And 9 specialists. 9 specialists looked at you," Daniel said. "I looked at the room." At 10:04, Emily Carter started crying, and she couldn't wipe her own face, and she was too proud to ask. And Daniel Brooks picked up a napkin from a drawer with 100 napkins in it and handed it to her, and she took it with the heels of both hands. "How did you notice," she said, "what every doctor missed?" And Daniel said, "Because I was trained to notice what doesn't fit. And because nobody ever notices me, so I've got a lot of time." At 11:41 that night, Emily Carter was admitted to the hospital and started on chelation, and the first infusion took 4 hours, and Daniel Brooks went home and sifted sand in a colander at 2 o'clock in the morning while his daughter slept. The detox took 9 months. Nobody tells you that part. Chelation isn't a cure, it's a negotiation. You pull the metal out and the metal doesn't want to come, and it takes what it can on the way. There were weeks where nothing happened. There were weeks where she got worse. In November, she lost more hair than she had in Boston, and she called Marcus at midnight and said, "What if this is just who I am now?" And Marcus said, "Then that's who you are." And she hung up on him and called him back in the morning and said thank you. In February, she felt her left hand. Not moved it, felt it. She was holding a coffee cup with both palms, and she said out loud to an empty kitchen, "It's hot." In May, her foot moved. In August, she signed her own name with her fingers for the first time in 3 years, and it looked like a child's, and she framed it. Claire Whitaker's numbers came back at 19% of Emily's. She recovered in 5 months. She testified for 11 hours. She has not spoken to her husband since the night he was walked out of that building, and she told a reporter once the only thing she's ever said publicly about it: "He watched me drink it, and he called it love." Grant Whitaker took a plea at 41 months and is appealing. Aaron Vance's charts arrived on Monday exactly as Emily said they would. 22 months of them. Beautifully written. Dated, detailed, and completely fictional. And the metadata said every one of them had been created between 9 p.m. Friday and 4 a.m. Saturday. And that was the thing that ended him. Not the thallium, not Ray. The timestamps. He surrendered his license in the spring, rather than face the board, and he is currently a wellness consultant in another state. And Emily Carter's foundation has a page with his name on it that has never once been taken down. Ray Delgado pled guilty. He pled guilty over the objection of a public defender and 2 of Emily's lawyers and his own wife. And he stood up in a courtroom and said, "I did it every 3rd day for 22 months, and I knew what I was doing after the 11th time." And he did not ask for anything. Emily Carter testified at his sentencing. She rolled up to the stand, and the prosecutor asked her what she wanted the court to know, and Emily Carter said, "I want the court to know that this man poisoned me for 2 years. I want the court to know that I will never forgive him. And I want the court to know that he paced the dose and kept every bottle and put the one man in that building who would see it on my floor on purpose, and that without him I would be dead, and everyone would have called it a disease." The judge asked if she was requesting leniency. And Emily Carter said, "No, I'm requesting the truth. Do what you want with it." He got 6 years. He'll serve 4. Sofia Delgado is alive, and she visits every other Sunday, and Emily Carter's foundation pays for the bus. At 8:15 on a Tuesday morning, 14 months after the night the pitcher left that building, Emily Carter offered Daniel Brooks a job. Vice President of Environmental Safety and Risk. "Ma'am." "Emily." "Emily, I'm a janitor." "You were a janitor." "For 14 years I was a—" "Daniel." She put both hands flat on the desk, and they stayed where she put them, and neither of them mentioned it. "You want to tell me you're not qualified? Fine. Tell the number. $241,000, 9 specialists, 4 hospitals, 3 years of my life. And a man with a mop found it in 11 days. That was luck. That was 14 years of training and a spine, and you've been calling it luck since the day you walked in here because somebody in Ohio taught you that being right is a character flaw." Her voice sharpened. "Aaron Vance told you being right isn't a personality. You know what? He was correct. It isn't. It's a job, and I'm offering it to you." Daniel Brooks stood there. "I've got a daughter," he said. "I know." There's a parent thing. On Thursdays, sometimes. Then you'll go, Emily Carter said. And Daniel Brooks put his hand over his eyes and stood in the middle of the 22nd floor and cried for the first time in 14 years because somebody had said the easiest sentence in the English language, and nobody had ever once said it to him. He took the job. The first thing he did was hire Nadia Okonkwo back with 9 years of seniority and 11 months of back pay. The second thing he did was walk into Ms. Perkins' office and take the laminated card off the wall, the one that said the answer is no until it isn't, and hand it to her and say, "Ma'am, you're the new floor director and you can throw that away or frame it, but you're never using it again." She framed it. She hung it face down. The third thing was the policy. It's 4 sentences. It's on the wall of every break room in 41 hubs, and it's the first thing anybody reads on their first day. Anyone can stop anything. You do not need a title. You do not need proof. You need a reason, and you will never be punished for having one. They call it the Delgado Rule. Emily named it. Daniel fought her on it for 6 weeks and lost. And the reason he lost is that she said in front of the board, "It's named for a man who did the worst thing in this story, and I want every person who reads it to know that the difference between him and the men in the good suits is that he wrote it down. Name it for the janitor, every time." Then, it has stopped work 49 times in 3 years. 11 of those were nothing. 31 were small. 6 were real. One was a valve in a Tulsa hub with the wrong color gasket flagged by a 23-year-old forklift operator on her 4th day, who said afterward that she almost didn't call it in because she figured somebody smarter had already looked. Somebody smarter had already looked. 4 somebodies. For 9 months. Maddie Brooks is 11 now. She got Rainforest last year. She says it wasn't as good as she thought it would be. Her father was at the parent thing. And on the 22nd floor there's still a picture on the corner of the desk, clay gray-green, ugly beautiful, and it's empty, and it's been empty for 3 years, and Emily Carter keeps it there because every single person who walks into that office looks at it and asks. And she tells them. Every time. Because a man with a mop looked at 4 white lines on a woman's fingernails and did the one thing that 9 specialists, 4 hospitals, 2 board certifications, and $241,000 never did. He asked. Titles don't save lives. Attention does. And the person nobody sees is the only one still looking.